Good morning.
Good
Yeah.
morning, Amal.
Hey,
Good
how are
morning. How you
you?
doing?
Yeah. I'm alive, and
Good. How you how
I
you
feel,
feeling?
yeah, I feel better, but I am um, definitely not 100%,
hmm
and
Well,
really keep having a bit of a legacy type of issue with getting really tired, exhausted, um, bad throat, pain behind the eyes, and things like that. So anyway,
mm,
it's yeah, uh, interesting, is what it is.
mm. And does that affect your day-to-day work and
I mean, when you're not 100%, you're not 100%.
mm,
I'm probably not as motivated to get out of bed as early as I'd like to. I'm still sort of waking
mm,
up, but then not getting up type thing on days.
mm.
I'm
What about
trying.
your morning training sessions? Are they
Yeah,
the
yeah.
same
So
or are
I'm
they?
no, funnily enough, I'm sort of doing them. So I've trained 5 days this week, um, but then how I feel after them, I don't feel like wow, I feel great. I almost feel like, oh God, that was hard work type
Mm,
thing. Um, yeah, it's just interesting. And then yes, it's more the unable to explain the health aspects of it because you come out of the COVID, it's going to lag for a bit, which it did, and then there was a couple of days where I actually felt all right. Um, so you think you're immune to everything, and it may very
mm.
well be that there's other bugs and things like that going on, Jeff.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Um, so anyway, good morning, listeners and viewers. You're listening to Amar and
Jaff.
live on our weekly show right here on Spice FM.
Each week we bring some views, news, and one or two clues from the business world.
Asian Business Connections aims to connect, support, and promote the Asian and wider communities.
And we'll be talking shop quite literally, not just corner shops. Whether you're looking to start a business, have an existing business, or you just want to talk business, we can help.
We can help. We do help. So it's February the 4th, Jeff. Crazy,
Mm.
crazy.
I'm just trying to work out where January went.
Yeah, and how are you, Jeff?
Yeah, thankfully I'm good. Obviously I had COVID as well, but I may have had, fortunately for myself, I might have had the Omicron strain of that, which was so mild that I didn't really. I mean, it was. I've had worse experiences with a normal flu, and there doesn't seem to be any after effects. So I'm able to kind of put that experience to one side and be thankful that I've got some antibodies and I'm able to get on with things prior to that. So we're just trying. Obviously, January naturally is a month where you try and plan and do a bit of business planning because whilst it may not be the financial year end or this and that, but it's always good to do that planning at that time of the year. So we've done a lot of that in over the last 2-3 weeks, and it's just a matter of just making sure that we can able to put that into fruition. So yeah, that's what I'm doing at the moment. So I'm getting phone calls coming in, and I probably need to put a stop to that somehow.
Yeah, but in yourself, you're fine. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we're all good. Just a bit behind in terms of January. You always try and make those resolutions as well, where you're going to train more and you're going to eat better and all of those kind of things. So that's a little bit behind, but otherwise I'm feeling well, thankfully.
Nice job. And thinking about January, how was January from a restaurant week and all of that? It was wonderful to see you on the news.
January always, it's for hospitality, it's a kind of quiet period. The only thing about January, normally you come off an incredibly busy December, and you do appreciate the couple of quieter weeks just to kind of reset and, you know, get things back in place and just cool down, and you know, and you do some crazy hours in December. But unfortunately, December would have been amazing apart from Boris made that announcement and he killed businesses for a good 2-3 weeks. So really a lot of December was wiped out because of government announcements and the supposed threat of Omicron. But so January was quieter, but you didn't want it to be quiet this year because you wanted to make up for a quieter December. But even so, Restaurant Week is always incredible, and the whole city comes out in Restaurant Week. It's really been kind of embraced by the public and the city as a whole and beyond. So that was very, very busy. And then you go back to the third week in January, a little bit quieter. February starts off a bit slow. I think it takes probably a little bit, probably mid-Feb, to get back to normal. But I think there's a bit of a social change now that the everything is kind of getting back to normal. I think that when a lot of people were working from home, I think hospitality did a little bit better on the weekdays because you're not going to eat at home every single day. So I think people were going out and getting takeaways and possibly skipping out to a restaurant when they could, working from home because they're just sick of being at home. Now if they have to go back to the office, I just think that the dynamic might change. So we have to see how that comes into fruition, because we're noticing our weekdays are not as busy as what they used to be. And we're trying to work out why that is. And one of the things, it could be that.
Sorry, one of the things could be what?
It could be that a lot more people are now not working from home.
Yeah.
So when they're working from home, if you imagine, you just get sick of cooking every single day, don't you?
Yeah.
So you would ordinarily, maybe you might get more of a takeaway, or you might say that, right, come on, let's quickly go out today and have a leisurely bite to eat. Not a night out, but let's go out, skip out for an hour or so and have a quick bite to eat. So I think we were gaining a lot of that, especially in Jesmond, being in a residential area. So I think that's the dynamic of that has slightly changed. So because we're noticing that the weekdays are slightly quieter than what they used to be. So I think, you know, if there's going to be a new norm, we have to now understand what that is, because if this is it and there's not going to be any further lockdowns and this and that, then we are where we are. Socially, things have evolved a lot in the last 18 months. We just got to really begin to understand that and see what the new norm is. So, for example, Amar, are the retailers going to be as busy as what they are today as to what they were prior to the lockdown? Because have people habits changed and how they shop? So that's just an example of how retailers now have to kind of understand the dynamic of what's happening in the new world or the new norm.
And there is no question, Jeff, that people's habits have changed, and you know, whether that's eating, shopping, leisure, hospitality. I think it's a bit, although there is an aspect of muscle memory, right? So inherently, we as human beings you know, will go and revert back to a particular form of an experience if it's ingrained and embedded, unless it's been purely modernized. So if, for example, shops were no more, then the likelihood is people would just do everything online. And if you think about this, I was doing a speech yesterday, and I was talking about video recorders.
Mm.
And
What, the old video recorders?
What?
The old video recorders or the new video recorders?
What's a new video recorder?
Well, when you think about the old video recorders, Ahmad, do you remember at the weddings when people used to have them?
Well, no,
I mean, the new video
sorry,
recorder.
a video. I'm talking about the fact that we were one of the first when mum and dad and we like were all happy, living happily, whatever. I remember going to Rumbelows and dad being one of the first people to buy a video recorder, and it had these big piano keys that you used to bash on the top, and you'd put the video in, and it took it in, and it was a tape, right? That's what I'm talking about. They don't exist anymore.
I don't think so.
I've still got one.
Have you?
Yeah.
It'll be. It can go in a museum now, can't it?
VHS. I probably haven't got one of the original ones, but I've got a more modern one, and it works. I've still got video.
And it was
tapes.
grey. It was grey. It was grey in color, wasn't it, Amar?
Yeah. It was. So anyway, coming back to where we're at, and this week it was Chinese New Year, Jeff, on the 1st, on Tuesday. And did you know that it's the year of the tiger?
Yes.
And lucky things in the year of the tiger are blue, green, 1, 3, 7, and plum blossoms.
Okay. So if you've got any connection to any of those things, it's going to be a good year for you.
Yeah, it'd be great if you had like sort of bluey green eyes, and you were like, anyway, I don't know, as in, well, they're the lucky things apparently, and it's the night where the most fireworks in the world are set off.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't know that. And
well, imagine the size of China. My goodness.
Yeah, very much so. It's and then the Chinese New Year ends with a lantern festival. Well, everything. It's curious, isn't it? Regardless of culture or religion, light features so heavily in everything.
Well, you can look at things light and darkness, right? Light is good and darkness is bad. So it depends how you want to look at that. But it is interesting how people do kind of. It's probably just common sense as well, isn't it? A lot of it stems from.
Yeah. Yeah. It certainly is. Today is the opening ceremony of the Winter Olympics in Beijing. And that's interesting. So Team Great Britain won 5 gold medals at the last Winter Olympics. Beijing is the first city in Olympic history to host both the summer and winter games. Jeff?
I think it's so interesting, Omar. I'm just trying to think. Obviously, it's artificial snow and everything, right?
Yeah. And and did you know all of the venues will run on renewable energy?
Okay. I mean, that is really interesting. Does that not take away quite a lot? I mean, I've not seen any footage or anything about it, but I'm wondering if that takes anything away from the authentic, let's call it, the authentic locations where snow is natural. I mean, does it affect the performance of the individuals? Are they all now having to train in artificial cities where there's artificial snow? Because if you imagine you're doing all the slaloms and skiing, is it just as good? Is it the same? That would be quite interesting, wouldn't it?
Well, I was thinking, well, I mean, the Olympics is a fantastic feat, isn't it? If you think about it, it's been going for so many years, based on the Olympians, and it just provides a competitive platform for people to come together.
Of course, it's amazing. The Olympics, absolutely amazing.
So it's
I mean,
incredible.
I mean, gosh, when the Olympics came to the UK, it was just one of the most amazing things. One of the most amazing things to experience.
So people sort of, the flame, the buzz, the atmosphere. It was just amazing.
And it was remember Mo Farah when he won the I think it was a double, wasn't it? The 800 and the 1500. It was just incredible.
It's like, that became synonymous, didn't it? It was like,
yeah.
Hey, whoa, is the thing. Anyway, the business topic of the week this week, Jeff. This is an interesting subject. It's called the second curve, right? So the average lifespan of a Fortune 500 size company is 40 to 50 years, which is interesting, right? So that's the equivalent of the FTSE in America. So the Fortune 500, the top 500 companies in America. And business life cycles are growing shorter than ever with the increasing impact of technological innovation. It is becoming more and more important to innovate in order to survive. The traditional way that the life cycle of a business is depicted is through an S curve, showing start, growth, maturity, and finally decline. Nowadays, businesses are following this cycle more and more rapidly. However, Peter Handy invented the idea of the second curve. The second curve overlaps the first, but starts its journey to growth before the first begins to level off. This visualizes the need for change and innovation within a business to ensure survival. It is important to remember, though, that wherever you consider your business to be along the first curve, the reality is that you are much further along. It's never too early to innovate, whether that's through your business model or through innovating your products or services. So, for example, Netflix has done this several times, changing from a postal DVD service to a streaming service. Then again, when they began creating their own content, in addition to licensing existing content. In contrast, Blockbuster failed to recognize their need to update their offering when they were on their way to decline. So it's interesting, right? Because if you think about it, every business does that. And that's where statistically, right, unless you reinvent yourself as a business, unless you innovate and change every sort of 2-3 years, that's probably the extent of a life cycle. And if you think about it from a leisure and hospitality point of view, Jeff, Duncan Fisher, who owned a number of bars, he done that. He demonstrated that. He was probably one of the first people that I know in that sort of sector who done that regularly and set the bar for everybody else. Certainly in the bar and nightclub industry, didn't he?
I mean, he did, and at some moments, I think the critical part of that, Amar, is let's say that you go to the apartment, have an amazing time, and for whatever reason, he knows internally the business dynamics. We as the public may not know, but then all of a sudden it would close. But the key to it is whatever you reinvent it as, it has to be better than what you had previously, right? Because if you don't, then your reinvention may not be successful. So clearly, as you mentioned, Netflix, it's just an in thing at this moment in time. And if they reinvent themselves again, probably something that we can't figure out, but they're just going to lead the way and change change something that we're going to be blown away by as well, and again and again. And I think that's probably the secret about reinvention.
I think, and here's the point, right, Jeff, you don't do, rather than reinvention, right, for me, it's probably innovation, right? Because the difference between reinvention is there's, from, and this is purely my opinion, invention and reinvention, there is no guarantee that your product or service is going to be desirable, right? So the term reinvention, from my point of view, probably isn't as attractive or appropriate to a business growth as is innovation. So innovation is where you are improving and enhancing and ultimately making better, whether that's a service, product, or experience. So the likelihood is, that Netflix isn't going to wake up tomorrow or today and say, we're going to stop doing what we're doing. What they'll do, because all good companies connect with their customers, they understand their customers' needs, they understand their customers' pains, and what type of thing is, keeping their customer awake when it comes to watching something on television, and what type of things does a customer dream about when they want that experience. So from that point of view, the likelihood is that innovation is what every single organization and business should be thinking about. And that's where that second curve comes about. It's hard to really reinforce and illustrate it without seeing what that life cycle is. But ultimately, it's, if you think about it, you start, right? So you've got like sort of people who are unaware, you then grow, you get to the top, and then you naturally start to decline. That is something that a business does regardless. Now, if at that point of decline, you will say, like we're using an example of Netflix or whatever it is, so that people stopped sort of, they probably got to a point with the DVD postal service where people were like, stopped using it from a novelty point of view, or it was painful sending it back and forth or whatever. So they then moved on to a streaming service, as it is. So they started streaming and everybody started using it. And then they thought, do you know what? Why are we buying other people's content? Why don't we start creating our own? And so the business model is in a point in time where it works, and they grow. Now the growth trajectory sometimes changes, because going back to your point earlier on about consumer behavior and has it changed, and does it change? It potentially does. So people want things faster, cheaper, better. That people want. That's the continuous improvement. Could you, as a business, deliver things better, faster, cheaper? Any one of them is an improvement, is an innovation. So the ideal scenario do you have any, let's just pick out Netflix. Do you have any qualms about Netflix? Do you have any issues with it?
I think the only issues you have is when there's an issue with the streaming, or there's an issue with the Wi-Fi or whatever it is, and you're not able to watch it undisturbed. But other than that, I think that, as a concept, it's obviously elevated how you watch movies compared to how we used to watch movies. And it's elevated it so much and so quickly, Omar, you just think that, getting a DVD or whatever, it's just prehistoric. You just wouldn't even do that anymore. And obviously, this is how it's gone, and the invention of Prime and Google Play and lots of other mediums. It's just a similar concept to Netflix, I'm assuming, and maybe it's Netflix pioneered that and they've just jumped on that bandwagon, right?
Well, it's I mean, the streaming, I don't think was Netflix's innovation, but certainly it was picked out by Netflix and exploited, because so when I worked in the black and white days, we had pay-per-view. So in effect, it wasn't even Sky, it was one of the cable companies in the 90s that came up with streaming, where it was, ultimately it was like, you pay for something, you can stream it now. Sky exploited the pay-per-view events, live events, where you paid for something and you could watch it, like the boxing. I mean, gosh, I think I've still got some memorabilia from years ago from, Bruno, Tyson, or, these type of, they had like Rumble in the Jungle 2 type thing. And they used to give us, because I ran a call center, they used to give us like memorabilia, so there'd be the big sort of promo, all of the staff would be encouraged to sell the pay-per-view events. It was like $14.99 or $15.99 or whatever it was. I mean, it wasn't cheap, right? In those days, I'm talking about the 90s.
It wasn't cheap at all. It wasn't cheap at all, but obviously things have moved on. But I just keep on thinking to myself, you mentioned the memorabilia and stuff. There's always going to be a market for that kind of stuff, regardless of how much technology kind of evolves. Technology becomes a little bit more faceless, doesn't it? The more technology it is, the more faceless things become. That human connection is kind of reduced and reducing and reducing, and that itself has its impact on society in general, because I think people's personalities and that social interaction is different. So I think, whilst it's good, all of this evolution and innovations and stuff, I think there's always going to be a market for that older school kind of things that used to be done.
You say that, Jack, but to be honest, don't know if it is. I think we as individuals pine that, and nothing's going to, well, we keep saying nothing's going to replace that physical, emotional interaction. But it's already been demonstrated in the last couple of years as to whether it is healthy or not. That's a total different debate. But if I could experience the food that you offer at home and virtually, right, have everybody else sat at their own table, but I'm virtually sat with them in an augmented reality place and space, right? And actually, it saves me from getting dressed, traveling somewhere, but in the augmented reality world, right, I'm sat there and I can see the dish that I'm eating and it's delicious. I'm wearing clothes that, I'm dressed up and everything. I'm having a great time. I mean, that's what's going on now. That's the future.
I think that's just utterly ridiculous. And let's hope that we don't go there ever. And maybe if there is a world that does...
We're going there.
Let's hope that the humans wake up and realize the importance of actually not living in that bubble and going out in the real world and actually going shaking someone's hand and giving them a hug, even though that you want to give them a hug with your mask on, give them a kiss on their cheek with your mask on if you choose to do so, because that's even accepted in society today. But I think that's my whole point. that when that the human touch it goes, I think the world's going to change for the worse, because surely you need to go out and live and breathe these experiences and go and see people and socially interact with that physical human being, and all this augmented reality where you think that for you, if you think that it's really, really cool getting dressed in your bedroom, you know, just for your bedroom, just for this TV show that you're, or this augmented reality connection of others around dinner, and you put your suit on and you put your makeup on, and that's it, it's done. And then you go back, take your clothes off and put your pajamas on in your bedroom, and you live from this experience to that experience. I mean,
you don't even need to put any clothes on. This is the point, right? Think about the convenience, right? And I appreciate that people would probably think that you're a bit of a technophobe and whatever else, and you have a particular view. But rest assured, Jaff, there are millions of people now globally who are sticking on a headset, engaging with other people, and whether they are displaying what they really look like or what they'd like to look like. So I could be an elephant, Jaff. I could come up
that would be really good. You know what?
I could get my
you know
trunk.
what I would like to do?
I could go, you know what, Jaff, I'm an elephant.
You know what I would like to do?
Be a lion or a tiger.
And what I would like to do is pull the plug.
But imagine, you could be Superman, Jaff. You could be flying around.
No, I would pull the plug and spoil the party. Imagine then, if I pull the plug and I spoil the party, and everyone's dressed up in their bloody Santa Claus outfits, and they're like a tiger and an elephant, and everything, and you got a blank screen.
And you sat there with your kutchi on, you know, like thinking, what's going on with the emperor's clothes, right? So you sat there with your dhoti or your kutchi with your headset, because 1 minute ago you were wearing this tuxedo virtually. Anyway, the point is, Jaff, it's the future, it's convenient, and that's where people are going to move to. There is no question about it.
Well, of course, I think, look, there is going to be evolution towards that, but you know, as I said, I just don't feel that it's the right way to go. I think part of life is experience that human touch, that interaction, that social interaction. I think that is just so critical to life and us, you know, human beings. And once that's beginning to go, I just think that I would worry about what the future holds.
Yeah.
So
listen, as to whether I would want to stop going somewhere, I must admit though, Jaff, from a evolution point of view, I'm far more hesitant to jump in the car and drive into town, or drive down to Tees Valley, or drive down to Liverpool, or jump on a train to London, when I can just do this.
Of course, in terms of, look, again, the convenience factor comes into it, but I wouldn't change the experience of getting up for these meetings that we've had and the events that we've been to in London. I would never change that for anything. When you get up and you experience that train journey, you experience the conductor coming in and taking your ticket and having a joke, and you know, you experience watching all the other people, whether they be in standard class or in first class, and you gauge life and you gain an understanding of life, and you go and live and breathe and feel for a city. When you're going towards London, you know, back in the day when we used to go with the family, you could smell a coaly smell as you're going towards King's Cross, and the noise of the trains and the hustle and bustle of the stations. I mean, gosh, come on, if you take that away and you just sat there as a constant, I understand the convenience of holding a meeting from your office and not doing that journey, which is fine. But if I had a choice of that convenience or that experience, I would choose the experience. And I feel it would be sad for those that haven't had those experiences in life. And they just sit around at the computer as a constant. As you see kids these days, they're just connected to their iPad and the games, and that's it. and what type of mentality are they forming? I think it's a real worry personally.
Yeah, this is probably the conversations that like people had in black and white days, before they introduced color. Do you honestly think so? So imagine, right? Do you think the pictures when they first came out that people were like, these are black and white pictures? No one would have said these are black and white pictures. They would have said that's a photograph. It's only when color was introduced that the historic pictures became black and white. That was just the norm. And the reference to this is, Jeff, this is the future. This is what kids and, as in, imagine our parents having a conversation with us, right? Going, and you're going, oh, Dad, look at this Tommy thing that you put on your eyes, and it goes, and he killed it, and he got the spaceship, and it was like, whoa, and your dad would come along and go, get to work. What's that stupid thing that you've got on your head, right? And it's exactly the same type of conversation having now.
No, I think it's different from the perspective that, look, all right, technological evolution is all good.
Son, why are you ringing? Go and see him. Oh, but Dad, it's so, like, I don't need to jump in the car and drive like 50 minutes. No. Go and see them. We're having exactly the same conversation now.
No, of course, look, I know we've talked about on our shows over the years the old airmail letters that used to come, the slightly blue ones with the red borders, and how it would take 3 weeks or 4 weeks for letters to come from abroad, and important information about whether it's a birth or a death or whatever. You wouldn't know until a good few weeks if you weren't a close relative to them. And then if you were to ring, you would have to go to the phone box and this, that, and the other. Of course, that's been huge innovations for the benefit of the wider society, where that all of the old issues have been eradicated, and you can pick up the phone to anyone abroad straight away, and you can even get them, on FaceTime and this, that, and other. And that social interaction benefits in those instances. And it's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And I'm all for all of that. I'm just a little bit against people having a robotic mentality, because of if social interaction diminishes, I just feel that people's life experiences that we've had, and they don't gain that. I think it's sad for them.
Yeah, and that's our view, Jeff, isn't it? This is the point. Because you can see it in two ways. And look, I don't necessarily disagree with you. I'm just sort of sharing and highlighting the fact that, the world's a smaller place. The world is far more connected. And what digital has enabled to happen is even further more interaction. So, the fact that you can put on a headset and you can virtually be anywhere, you can experience anything, does that not offer more enhanced opportunities and experiences, so that, I don't need to travel to Rome? Of course, there's nothing quite comparative to it, but maybe I can't afford to, or maybe I just will never get the chance to, or for whatever reason. Right? And if I can put on a headset and I say to you, Jeff, let's walk the Great Wall of China, because that's one of my life ambitions, right? Is to walk across the Great Wall of China. I think it's an incredible
really
the world. And
why haven't we done that yet?
I'd love to think that I could, but if I'm able to put on a headset with you and I'm in the same place as you, and we're walking along and we're having a conversation, and if I want to change into a ninja to really get into the spirit and eat some Chinese food whilst I'm doing it, all of that, I can experience that. It actually offers people opportunities they may never get the chance to do, is the point. So there's flip sides. Anyway, it's interesting, right? As in, this is the future, and there is an opportunity there. You know, and going back to business model innovation, it's very much a case of you know, looking at how can you improve. And I'm not suggesting that tomorrow you start offering all of your diners headsets. You might want to think about it, but you know, as in it's a very interesting concept, and it will come about. I remember, you know, sort of that whole augmented reality in a place on Regent Street that my wife and I attended, and when we were there, it sort of shined the dishes on your plate so you could see what they were and you could see what they looked like, and it had like stuff like that, and I thought that was so quirky. And it was rated the #1 place, right, by eating out or dining out or whatever that sort of publication is called, for first dates, because it was so quirky and it was tech based.
I mean, look,
So,
it is something that
from an innovation point of view, just look at innovation, see what's what. Coming back to the wonderful presentation that the magical Martha pulls together for us, is the let's just see, where are we at from that point of view. So Digital City Scale is one of the programs. So, you know, we talked about innovation to grow. The Digital City Scale program launches again in 10 days. So what is scale? It's about your ability to grow rapidly. And it's you know, in comparison to your traditional sort of business life cycle, it suggests that you grow 20% year on year as a minimum. Type of things it covers everything from business model innovation to leadership to cash to strategy, you know, the key components of scaling companies and what you need to consider if you're scaling. And why is scaling important? Well, you know, if you just look at the type of companies like Amazon, Google, Facebook, Netflix, all of these are what you consider to be scaling companies, and they look at the component of a business. So leadership, strategy, cash, and marketing and sales. They look at those components and make sure that they are effectively and efficiently operating. Pitch Perfect, Jeff. There's an investor readiness program, and we've got the likes of Nigel Mills. He's a good guy, isn't he? The Lakes Distillery. We met him at the entrepreneurs thing as well.
Yeah, I mean, so intelligent. So many vast number of businesses that he's been involved in. A dynamic businessman for sure.
Well, they had the Mills News Agency and they sold it out to Tesco's and all of that, you know. So it was like, it's great guy. And then Craig Conway teaches you how to act. This time, Jeff, it's a residential program in Hardwick Hall. So it's over 2 days, 1st and 2nd of March. And you get all of the support that you need. You're in a hotel with sort of 10, 12 other growing businesses. You've got all of the experts. We've got the Bank of England. We've got the Tees Valley Combined Authority. We've got the British Business Bank sort of supporting you and helping you identify your pitch, how to sell and better communicate the value of your business and things like that. Fantastic program. Normally it's done over workshops, but this time we're cramming it all in 36 hours. So great opportunity. If you're based in Tees Valley and you want to come to probably one of the best programs around understanding how to communicate effectively, storyboard. We use Pixar's storytelling mechanisms. We use all of the toolkits, the design thinking toolkit around getting on the bus and things like that, Jeff, that we've talked about previously. We use all of those models in this.
Incredible.
And then finally, the headlines. What do
I
you
mean,
think?
maybe you can talk about Sue Gray, the Sue Gray report, and how Boris is still there. Is he going to be there tomorrow? Is he going to, or do you think there'll be a time where he says that? Look.
Yeah, I think the end is nigh. I think, although he's a very resilient person, you know, as in, I'll give Boris all of his dues. You know, the Prime Minister. It's interesting that even people have become so comfortable with Boris or whatever else. You know, everyone from a respect point of view was always like Prime Minister, and I still think we should respect that most senior role. I'm just saddened by the distraction that it's bringing and coming and has brought. You know, as in, there's so much important stuff going on, and it's just, I mean, interesting that Munira Mirza has left. You know, I was like surprised, but I'm equally slightly disappointed that, you know, doing so publicly with a letter and all of that type of thing. And because these policy people aren't politicians, Jeff, and I almost feel it's wrong for them to try and politicize certain. I mean, obviously they're part of the politics, but they're not politicians. So that public demonstration, I think, is just another distraction. I think it's slightly wrong. If you have a view and that's your view, you've shared it with that individual. If they don't accept or you're not on the same page, if you can't work it out, you leave. You know, it's like someone leaving here and going, oh, well, I don't like doing this, and then publicizing it on the front page of, well, I disagreed with what that person done. I don't think that's right. If you're in a paid employment, I think there needs to be some level of consideration, respect, and appreciation of somebody's role. And the others, you know, it just so happens that they've beat Boris. Boris was sacking everyone, right? He had to, on the back of the Sue Gray Met report. What everybody has done is they've beat him to that. So they've resigned. Now, if I go, I'm about to get sacked, right? I'd rather resign.
Yeah, but he's the culprit, though, isn't he?
In what?
He's the guy at the top that knew about all of this stuff, clearly, allowed it to happen, kept quiet about it, and you were going to sack everybody, but you're not going to sack yourself or resign yourself.
No, okay, well, that's it. I mean, that's your view, right? As to whether he knew everything or what he felt about everything, you know, I mean, gosh, Jack, think about this. You're running the country. I'm not suggesting he's right or wrong. I'm not saying that he didn't break the rules or not. That's not for me to decide. That, you know, the press have already made their decisions. They're already, they stuck the knife in weeks ago, and it's just reinforcing it and whatever else. The top and bottom of it is you know, he had people there. They got together. Some of what they got together around, you know, has been, you know, sort of taken out of context. It's dead easy, you know, to go, I'm going to focus on this part of the a conversation, an activity, whatever it is, and then I'm just going to purely look at this and this. Like even the comments around the Jimmy Savile, right? So this whole the reason why apparently Munira Mirza was you know, sort of has resigned is because of the comments that he made against Keir Starmer about Jimmy Savile. Now, they were on the back of a conversation and question around the Met Police and how the Met Police and such shouldn't be doing this X, Y, Z. So it's been, you know, if you contextualize it, at the time of Jimmy Savile not being prosecuted when he did or didn't, Keir Starmer was in charge of the CPS.
Yeah. And he should be accountable for Jimmy Savile shenanigans.
But okay, but Keir Starmer apologized for that in 2013. So the reference to Jimmy Savile and the reference to Keir Starmer was at the time, or at a point when he was in charge of the CPS. And the point that was being made was in reference to the commander, the commissioner, I can't remember her name immediately, of the Met Police, and how they were compromised or whatever it is. So he was just contextualizing some of that, right? But all of a sudden, the only thing that you've seen in the press and the news and everything else is he made that comment against Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer didn't get up and say or do anything, because if you were outraged or if you felt aggrieved, and certainly in politics and politicians, you would be jumping up and going, that is outrageous, how dare you? He just sat there and accepted it, is the point. Now, I'm in this conversation, we remain apolitical. I'm just sharing the news, right? So coming back to your question around, I think Boris is coming up to a point in time where it's becoming more and more challenging. I think everybody has sort of made up that decision and are continuing to reinforce that. Even Rishi Sunak sort of said yesterday, I wouldn't have made that comment, rather than not saying anything at all. And allegedly, and this is where it is, allegedly, and I have, if you listen to certain people, Rishi is sort of almost positioning himself as the leader.
Really? Well, interesting. I mean, let's see what I think there is a lot more that's going to happen with obviously the PM and his position, and I think it will come out into fruition in the next few weeks or so. So let's hold fire and see. I personally think his position is not attainable with everything that's happened. You're the head man, and you've got away with so much. Yes, you've got thick skin.
And I think you're right, Jeff. There is. Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I just don't. My personal view is, and this is purely personal, is we do not need this distraction right now, right? And the press and media and everything else, as a country, we should be coming together to try and address some of the big headline ticket issues that are affecting people. Things like inflation, fact that the Bank of England put the interest rate up yesterday, the fact that energy bills are soaring, the fact that people are now even more affected and impacted by the cost of living. So there's almost a what could we and should we be doing? And actually on the horizon for businesses, Jaff, and individuals, is the national insurance increase. So all of a sudden we're paying, rather than, I look at payments, and I had this very briefly on this note, Jaff, because I pay primarily, I pay myself through payroll in all of my businesses, right? So all of a sudden, if you think about this, right, I'm paying sort of 45%, whatever tax I'm paying, right? I'm then paying the national insurance, and then because it's my business, I'm paying another 14% 13% national insurance, which is going to increase to 14%. So how much am I actually coming out with?
Well, nothing. We're paying just to breathe. That's what I feel like.
So I done the maths. And all of a sudden, I'm actually coming out with, less than a third of what I'm getting paid. And then if I think about VAT, if I think about tax, if I think about all of these things, I'm probably left with like a couple of percent.
Yeah, I'm left with nothing, not a pence.
Well, I'm left with more than nothing. But it's interesting, right? So
sick of the same old radio sound. Then you need vibrant radio. Spice up your life.
I'm off. See you next week.
FM 98.8
FM.
There's the top